What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another video here on my channel. Today we're going to talk about how you go about short selling on TD-Ameritrade. Commonly asked question I always get is, how do you short on TD-Ameritrade? Are you allowed to short on TD-Ameritrade? How do you go about doing it? So today we're going to answer all of those questions, and hopefully I can lead you guys in the right direction. So if you're focusing here on my screen, I'm going to walk you through a few things that you first need to look for before you even try to short a stock. And if I take a step back here, if you're using TD-Ameritrade and you would like to short or short sell a stock, you will need a margin account, not a cash account. So if you have a cash account with TD-Ameritrade, you will have to upgrade that to a margin account in order to short sell. Upgrading your account to a margin account is completely free. All you'd have to do is give them a call, or you would just have to, essentially sign up for a margin account when first going through the application process for TD-Ameritrade. If you don't have a margin account, feel free to give them a call. To be more than happy to move it over for you. Secondly, from what I was reading by TD-Ameritrade, you need to have at least $2,000 minimum balance in your account before you can short any security. So what that means is, if you have a TD-Ameritrade account, you need to at least have upwards of $2,000 of capital in your account at any given time if you would like to short a stock. So that's kind of the requirements of your account before you're able to actually short a security. But going into the technical side of it, if you're looking at the screen here, all right, and let me grab my drawing tools. If you're looking at the screen, all right, right now it's the weekend while I'm recording this video, so as of right now, some things won't actually display as they normally would during the actual trading days or trading hours, but I'll explain in enough detail so that even though they're not here, you'll still understand it. So a big problem everybody has when trying to short on TD-Ameritrade, or if they're not used to it or never done it before, is they go, hey, I tried to short the stock, but it wouldn't let me short. It said no shares available to short. Or I always try to use TD-Ameritrade to short, but whenever I'm shorting, I always get the error code, no shares available to short, every time I try to short a stock. Well, if this is the case for you, that is because you're trying to short a stock that is now currently not available to short, at least through the broker TD-Ameritrade. Every stock on the market is not shortable, okay? Not every stock has shares to short. Some brokers have shares to short on some stocks, whereas a different broker may not. So if TD-Ameritrade says they have no shares to short, that does not mean that E-Trade does not have shares to short. So each broker within the trading world all have different shares to short for different companies. Some of these different brokers may have shares to short of the same stock, okay? So just because you try to short a stock does not mean it's going to happen, okay? Because each broker has a separate or an inventory of stocks that are readily available to short if you choose to. But some do not have some stocks available to short. So now that we've cleared that up and you understand that not every stock is shortable, and it depends on whether or not your broker has shares to short, will be the determining factor on whether or not you're able to short a stock. So the question you now have is, well, if I want to short a stock, how can I find out if there are shares to short? And I will show you. If you're using TD-Ameritrade, there are really two steps, or kind of two things that you can do to see whether or not a stock is shortable. So for one, look at the screen. I will show you right here. You see all this information that's always kind of displayed here at the top of the blue bar, which is also right next to the search bar for your tickers, that guy. Well, in this big circle that I just drew, so let me redraw it, in this big circle during market hours, not the weekend, but during market hours, usually right here where I'm going to draw this star, I believe it's right here to be exact. That's not a star, but I'll draw a smiley face because I can definitely do that. So right there in that smiley face, right there on your screen is where you'll be able to determine whether or not a stock is shortable. And then I'll also show you another thing you can do that I personally like better, okay? So right there on the stock chart, and let me do this. So if I went over here and I typed in, Microsoft, right? It would be the same spot right where that smiley face is. Or if I went over and did Amazon, or if, I did Micron, right? It doesn't matter. Baba, Alibaba. Right where that smiley face is at, it will show you whether or not the stock is shortable, okay? Or if it's not. What it will plot right where I have the smiley face on my chart, right there, what it will plot is one of usually three things, okay? It will either say ETB, ETB stands for easy to borrow, or if I can do these back all the way, it will say HTB. Hard to borrow, meaning that it is very hard to get shares to short. Okay? And lastly, it will say NTB, which you can probably figure this out by now, no shares to borrow. Okay? So at the top of the screen in that blue bar, during market hours, anytime you search a stock or a ticker, it will usually tell you whether or not it is easy to borrow, hard to borrow, or no shares to borrow. No shares to borrow means they have no shares that you can borrow to short. Hard to borrow means they do have shares to short, but if you want to short the stock, you would then have to join their hard to borrow program. And then lastly, you have ETB, which is easy to borrow, which means if you want to short the stock right now, you may do so. So if you ever come across the HTB, that means hard to borrow, which means you can short that stock only if you were to join TD-Ameritrade's hard to borrow program. How do you do this? Well, give them a call. They have a specific department for hard to borrow or shares to short of their hard to borrow program. You'll speak to a gentleman, they'll ask you a few questions, and then they'll basically say, and they'll send you out an application to join their hard to borrow program, and you'll go through all that, and then you'll be a part of the hard to borrow program that is specifically linked to your account, which means when you try to short a stock that is hard to borrow, you will be able to do it. I do not even have, or I'm not a part of the hard to borrow program through TD-Ameritrade. Why am I not a part of the hard to borrow program? Because the hard to borrow program comes with extraordinary fees. If you want to be a part of the hard to borrow program and be able to short all the hard to borrow stocks, you are going to pay a hefty fee or a hefty commission in order to be able to short those particular stocks that are hard to borrow. So in my eyes, it's definitely not worth it to be a part of their hard to borrow program. Sure, you can short some good stocks that otherwise you would not be able to do so, but the fees outweigh the benefit, okay? The fees are extraordinarily high, in which I don't really see a big benefit to even being a part of the program, and that's my 2 cents, okay? Again, if it says ETB, that means you'll be able to easily short the stock whenever you choose to. If it says NTB, that means that there are no shares to short, which means even if you are part of the hard to borrow program, you still wouldn't be able to short the stock because TD-Ameritrade as a broker does not have any shares to short of that company, which means therefore you would not be able to short it, whether or not you're a part of the hard to borrow program. I will also mention, okay, again, when you type a ticker in, you should either say ETB right in this area, somewhere in this area. You see ETB, HTB, or NTB again. Sometimes you will not see ETB, NTB, or HTB. You actually won't see anything. So I don't know if this is a glitch or what it actually is, to be completely honest, but every once in a while when I come across a stock and it does not show anything, it shows no easy to borrow, no hard to borrow, or no shares to borrow, it's hard to borrow, or easy to borrow. Sometimes I don't see any of that plotted up there. And even though it doesn't display it, I'm still able to short the stock. So I'm not sure exactly what that is or why it's, it is the way it is, but I can tell you I've come across some stocks where it doesn't actually display whether or not it's easy to borrow, hard to borrow, or have no shares to borrow. It's just left blank, but I'm still able to short it. So if you ever come across a ticker that you want to short, but it doesn't actually show whether or not it's able to be shorted, you might as well try and short it either way, because what's it going to hurt you? If you want to short the stock, go ahead and try it. Worst thing that's going to happen is, well, they're going to say no shares to short, or it's hard to borrow. And then again, you can't short it anyway. So you might as well give it a try. Okay, moving on to the next place. Okay, so for me, I like to use the watch list over here to determine whether or not a stock is shortable. Okay, and I'll talk a little bit more about this. Okay, specifically, when I'm trading, I usually have more than one screen up on my chart, as you can see here. See, I just kind of see how there's one and now there's two. I have multiple monitors where I'm running sometimes 8 different charts at a time. When you run more than one chart on your screen, what it then does is it actually shrinks down the stock chart, obviously. In order to fit multiple charts, it shrinks every one chart down to be able to fit multiple charts on the screen. What that does, and I'll just take a look here. So you see how, you see how open the toolbar up here looks right now? See how much space there is right there, just dead space? And then when I shrink it down to 2 charts, you see how there's almost no space? So when you do that, and you're running multiple different charts on a screen, what's going to happen is you might actually take up the space in which TD-Ameritrade would display whether or not it's easy to borrow or hard to borrow. So if you don't understand what I'm saying, is if you crunch in a bunch of charts on your stock screen or on your screen, you crunch in a bunch of charts of stocks on one screen, what you then do is you actually shrink the toolbar up here. And what that's going to do is kind of take away the amount of space that's able to plot stuff on the toolbar. And what TD-Ameritrade does, or the program does, is it automatically just does not display whether or not the stock is easy to borrow, hard to borrow, or has no shares to borrow. So what then I would do, or what I usually do, is rather than trying to figure out if it's right here, I will just simply go into my watch list that I create on the right, and when I type in a ticker, and we'll just do Amazon, it will tell me whether or not it is easy to borrow, hard to borrow, have no shares to borrow right in this space. As you can see, there is nothing being plotted in this black space where I'm drawing these arrows, and that's because it's the weekend and it's not market open. But during the market hours or pre-market trading, you will see it will display whether or not it's easy to borrow, hard to borrow, have no shares to borrow. Okay. Now, some of you may not even know how to first get this little watch list thing here, so I'll do that. Okay, so if I close this, there's this little tab right there, that little arrow thing. When you click that, it will then open up that window I just had open. Some of you may already have the watch list up, but if you don't, what you would then do is go down here to this little plus sign at the bottom of the screen. You click plus, it says add gadget. When you do that, you can click watch list, and that will bring up a new tab for you to put in for your watch list. And from here, you can start adding tickers or different stocks. Maybe if my computer would work. I don't know why it's not. That's weird. Anyways, won't let me add in a new ticker, but you get the point. You can add in a watch list, and then from there you can start adding in tickers. But if you want to use this watch list to determine whether or not a stock is easy to borrow, hard to borrow, no shares to borrow, you must first go through another step. So now that you've added the watch list there, you want to go to this little gear icon right here. You see that little gear icon right at the end of this window? You will then want to click that. What that's going to do is it's going to allow you to customize your watch list window. And so what you're going to do is you're going to go in here to customize, and you're going to look up HTB or ETB. And when you double click that, it will add it to your window. Okay. So typically, let me remove it, right? I'll remove this one. Typically, the watch list little window there does not come with the hard to borrow, easy to borrow short list. You have to actually add that into your watch list. So if you're going to be someone who's actively shorting stocks or wanting to know which stocks are shortable, this would probably be a wise decision for you to make or to do, in which you'd want to add your HTB or ETB list to your watch list. And once you hit OK, you will then have HTB, ETB here. And whenever you search up a ticker, it will either tell you whether or not it's hard to borrow, easy to borrow, have no shares to borrow. So that right there, everything I've showed you covers, or basically covers, how you go about figuring out whether or not a stock is or is not shortable on TD-Ameritrade. Secondly, or to the next thing here, is how do you actually short a stock? Well, with a lot of brokers, they'll actually have a short button, but for TD-Ameritrade, they don't. They do not have a short button. So many traders obviously know that you can click buy to buy a stock, and then when you've purchased it, you can hit the sell button to sell it. Well, if you want to short a stock, just do the exact opposite. All you do is hit sell first, and then when you want to get out of the position, you just hit buy. Okay, so that is the process there of really using TD-Ameritrade to short and how you figure out how you can short them. So we'll do a quick little run through, kind of like an example. So let's say I wanted to short the stock IQ on Friday. All right, so all I would have done, if in the morning the bell opens and I wanted to short it, I could have come over to here and I could have go and typed the ticker in, IQ. And now that I have the HTB, ETB here on my watch list, and I go to IQ, right here it would say whether or not I can or cannot short the stock. So if it said ETB, right, if it said ETB there, I would know that I was able to short the stock. So when the market opens, I may in fact go, hey, I want to short IQ today. So I go, I'll take 3,000 shares short. I see it pop up. I want to short it. I go, you know what? Okay, let's do it. And I go to sell 3,000 shares short. All right. Now, of course, this would be not right here. It'd be over there. But that's all it would take. If it opens up and I wanted to short IQ, I've checked that, in fact, it is shortable. I would come up here and I would add in the amount of shares that I would like to short, whether that's 500 or let's say it's some of that many shares. I don't know what that is, but probably some around 6 billion or trillion shares. I would just hit sell market. And then if my position gets executed, I would then be in 500 shares short. And then when I would like to exit, I would just hit buy 500 shares back. So that is the process. Again, I will walk you through it one more time. If I wanted to short IQ here, and let's say I wanted to get out of my position down here, when I was first up here, I would go over and I would click sell 500 shares. And then when I wanted to exit my position down here, I would come up and then I would click buy back my 500 shares. And what that would then do is that would exit my position for me. And that is the whole process of figuring out whether or not you can short a stock on TD-Ameritrade, and really how you go about shorting a stock on TD-Ameritrade. So again, that has been a common question that I've been asked for a while, so it's about time I got towards making a video. So hopefully you guys do enjoy the video. Please give me a like, thumb, subscribe, share, and all that good stuff before you head out on the video. Do appreciate it, and always make sure to stay in tune with me. So you can do that by following all the links below in the description. And most importantly, make sure to always tune into our pre-market morning stock watch list, which we do on Monday through Friday, starting at about 8:30 a.m. in the morning Eastern Standard Time, which is about 1 hour before market open. All right. Take care, guys, and stay tuned for the next video.